When you hear the name Massey-Ferguson, tractors immediately come to mind. Red machines working the fields, harvesting wheat, baling hay. That's the image most people carry with them. But there was a time when this agricultural giant tried something completely different, something that most people today have completely forgotten about. Massey-Ferguson once built excavators, not just one or two experimental models, a full lineup of crawler and wheeled machines that competed directly with the biggest names in construction equipment. These diggers were sold across North America, Europe, South America, and beyond. Operators who ran them called them powerful, pretty fast, and way ahead of their time. So what happened? How did one of the world's most recognized agricultural brands build some of the most innovative excavators of the 1970s, only to walk away from the business entirely? This is the forgotten story of the Massey-Ferguson excavators. The roots of Massey-Ferguson's venture into construction equipment actually started with backhoe loaders. In 1953, when Massey Harris merged with Harry Ferguson's company, the newly formed enterprise wasn't just thinking about farm tractors. They saw an opportunity in the booming construction industry. By 1957, the firm purchased Midwestern Industries in Wichita, Kansas, which gave them immediate access to the backhoe market. That same year, they also acquired Davis Backhoe. These weren't minor moves. They were deliberate steps into a completely different world. The company's industrial division officially became its own entity in 1966. It was given the designation ICM, which stood for Industrial and Construction Machinery. But backhoe loaders were just the beginning. What the executives in Toronto really wanted was a complete construction equipment lineup that could rival Caterpillar, Case, and the other major players. They needed excavators. In 1968, Massey-Ferguson made a move that would define their excavator program. They purchased the manufacturing rights to Beltrami Excavators, an Italian company that had developed some remarkably advanced hydraulic crawler machines. The deal included more than just designs. It came with a brand new factory in Aprilia, a town located south of Rome. This facility would become the production center for all Massey diggers sold around the world. But here's what made these machines unique. While they were built in Italy with classic European styling, the engineering direction came from Detroit. American engineers worked closely with their Italian counterparts to create excavators that would meet the demands of North American contractors. The result was something special. These weren't just rebadged European machines slapped with a Massey-Ferguson logo. They were genuinely innovative products that incorporated features many competitors wouldn't adopt for years. Massey-Ferguson's excavator range centered around two main models, the 350 and the 450. The 350 was the smaller of the two, weighing in at approximately 14 tons. It featured a maximum digging depth of around 5 meters and a horizontal reach of 8 meters. Power came from a Perkins 4-cylinder diesel engine, producing roughly 73 horsepower. The 450 was the flagship. This machine tipped the scales at approximately 32,000 pounds and ran on the legendary Perkins 6354 6-cylinder diesel. With the same 73 horsepower rating but significantly more torque, the 450 could handle 3/4-yard buckets with ease. Both machines were manufactured from 1970 through 1975 in their original forms. Then came the upgraded S variants. It brought improvements across the board. Production ran from approximately 1975 all the way into the late 1980s on some markets. The newer version featured a digging depth of nearly 7 meters, a maximum horizontal reach of 8.75 meters, and bucket capacities ranging from 0.58 to 1 cubic meter. There was also a 450D variant which weighed 15.3 tons and offered slightly different specifications optimized for specific applications. Perhaps most interesting was the 350C, a wheeled version sometimes called a rubber duck in operator slang. These machines gave contractors mobility between job sites without the need for a lowboy trailer. What made these excavators stand out wasn't just specifications. It was the engineering philosophy behind them. The Massey excavators featured hydrostatic drive systems. While this technology seems standard today, in the late 1960s and early 70s, it was cutting edge. Most competitors were still using mechanical drivetrains. The hydrostatic system gave operators smoother control and better efficiency, even if the machines weren't quite as fast as modern equipment. Another innovative feature was the adjustable boom. Some models offered a manual slide mechanism that allowed operators to extend or shorten the boom length depending on the job requirements. This versatility meant one machine could handle a wider variety of tasks without swapping components. The Aprilia factory in Italy wasn't the only production site. In Brazil, the local operation assembled 350 excavators as completely knocked-down kits during the early 1970s, using locally produced Perkins engines. Few of these Brazilian-built machines survive today. Meanwhile, the company was expanding through acquisitions. In 1971, they purchased the Lorraine wheel loader line. 3 years later, in 1974, they completed the acquisition of Hanomag's construction equipment division in Germany. Hanomag had been building tracked machines since before World War I. Adding their expertise gave the manufacturer access to crawler dozers, compactors, and additional excavator designs. By the mid-1970s, factories in Italy, Germany, the United Kingdom, and Brazil were all producing equipment under the Massey banner. Everything changed in the 1980s. Massey-Ferguson as a whole was struggling financially. The agricultural equipment market had collapsed. Interest rates reached historic highs. Commodity prices fell. Farmers stopped buying tractors, and the company found itself drowning in debt that eventually exceeded $1.8 billion. The Canadian and Ontario governments stepped in with a bailout in 1981, but the damage was already done. The corporation had to make brutal decisions about which product lines to keep and which to abandon. Then came IBH Holding. This German conglomerate purchased the Massey-Ferguson Hanomag division in 1980. For a few years, production continued under the new ownership, but IBH collapsed into bankruptcy in 1984, taking the German operations down with it. The Italian excavator factory didn't fare much better. Production gradually wound down as resources were redirected toward more profitable agricultural products. Finding parts became increasingly difficult. Dealers moved on to other brands. By the mid-1980s, the excavators that had once represented Massey-Ferguson's ambitions in construction equipment were essentially orphaned machines. In 1992, a management buyout separated the industrial division from what remained of Massey-Ferguson. The new company was named Firmec, based in Manchester, England. They continued producing backhoe loaders using expertise inherited from decades of Massey development. Case Corporation purchased Firmec in 1997. 4 years later, as Case merged with New Holland, regulators required them to divest certain product lines. Firmec was sold to Terex Corporation in 2001. The backhoe loader designs that traced their lineage back to 1950s eventually became Terex products. In 2017, French manufacturer Mecalac acquired parts of that former Terex operation, continuing the evolution of machines whose design stretches back 7 decades. As for the excavators themselves, they simply disappeared from production, leaving behind only the machines that survived in contractor fleets. Today, Massey-Ferguson excavators are genuinely rare. Parts are almost impossible to source. Most have been scrapped over the years as they became too expensive to maintain. But some survive. In Canada, the United States, the United Kingdom, and scattered locations across Europe, a handful of units still exist. Some are working equipment, kept running by dedicated owners who've fabricated their own replacement parts. What strikes most people who learn about these machines is how advanced they were for their era. The hydrostatic drive, the adjustable boom, the easy engine access. These weren't primitive predecessors to modern equipment. They were sophisticated machines that simply ended up on the wrong side of corporate financial disasters. The Perkins engine that powered the 450 series remains legendary among diesel enthusiasts. Known for reliability and fuel efficiency, these power plants outlasted the excavators they were installed in. The Massey-Ferguson excavator story teaches us something important about industrial history. Success in one market doesn't guarantee success in another. Brand recognition only goes so far. The company had the engineering talent, the manufacturing capability, and the dealer network to compete in construction equipment. Their machines were genuinely good, praised by operators who ran them hard for decades. Yet the broader corporate struggles of the 1980s swept away everything they had built. Today, Massey-Ferguson exists as a brand under AGCO Corporation, focused entirely on agricultural equipment. There are no excavators in their catalogue, no crawler dozers, no wheel loaders. But for a brief window in the 1970s and early 1980s, construction sites around the world featured machines painted yellow, bearing a name that everyone associated with farming. Those machines moved earth, dug foundations, and built infrastructure that still stands today. The operators who ran them are retiring now, taking their memories with them. The machines themselves rust away in forgotten corners of equipment yards. Soon there will be nothing left but photographs and old sales brochures. This was the unknown chapter of Massey-Ferguson's history, a story of ambition, innovation, and ultimately, corporate tragedy that buried some of the most advanced excavators of their generation. And now you know it too.